I didn't take his calls, and then it literally sent him to the hospital.
Oh, we are just nice friends.
Why would I be coming all the way from Orlando here for a friend?
Is this a prank or what? I don't get it.
Did my ears hear that correctly? Did Bozo say that he got that plant for his girlfriend that he's meeting for the first time in a dumpster? Between that and Brian's nightmare meeting with Ingrid's mom, we need to get into it. Hi guys, welcome back to Nikki Faces Reality. We are here to discuss 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 days. These plots are thickening. We see the comeback of Chicken Lady and Chidi. There's a lot to cover, so we're just gonna jump straight into it. Before we do, as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for being here. So we're gonna jump straight into it. Let's start with Brian and Ingrid. You guys, Brian is like a bull in a china shop when it comes to boundaries. He's like, you know what? I've been here for a week. It's been a roller coaster. You don't really know if you like me. You won't let me touch you. I'm determined to get into every crevice of your life. So before they go on their romantic getaway, he asks Ingrid to set a meeting with her parents. Ingrid had said up front that she wasn't comfortable with introducing him to her parents because they're not as open-minded. And after his revelation about his past, she was like, oh, I'm definitely not sure about introducing you to my kids, to my family. So imagine my surprise when I see that she has given in to this fool another time. When he showed up to her house and randomly met her kid, she should have been like, no, go back. I didn't send for you. But she let him in. And now with this request, she gives in again and invites her family. But I'm trying to think of this from Ingrid's perspective. She's been with this guy for 2 years. She cares about him. So she's probably like, his ego bruises easily. Let me just give in to this and invite my parents. And, again, she makes it clear that she has some reservations. She gave Brian a warning that her parents could be a little standoffish. She's actually not as close to her dad because of that, or her mom is a little more open, so they're much closer and she shares a lot with her mom. When she said that, immediately I was like, but how much have you shared? Did you tell your mom about the hotel incident? Because, that may be a factor in how she acts. But the time has come and it's only her mother, and Brian is feeling away because he's like, what does her dad have against me? Is it because my wheelchair? He's in his head about it. But I get the feeling that her dad isn't in the business of pretending. But if he's not in the business of pretending, I'm very confused on her mother. Because the way that Ingrid talked about it is like her dad is like the final boss. But if he's the final boss, I am scared to meet him because her mother is lethal. Let's talk about this awkward meeting. First of all, she comes in. She's, kind with Ingrid, kind with her grandson. She looks at Brian, gives him a look. Brian tries to hug her and she is trying to give him a handshake. And he's overcompensating from the start, which I get. You want to impress your partner's family. You want them to like you. But I feel like there's a sequence of events that, should happen. You should greet them, say hello, say hi, I'm Brian. You have to read their body language and see what they're comfortable with, right? But this man is trying to hug her but also hand her a gift at the same time, which I feel like gifts are nice, but some people may interpret that as you trying to buy them off. And that's what it felt like. And she got the bag, opened the gift, looked at the purse, and she was like, and said nothing else. I didn't catch if she said thank you, but she was just like, okay. And you can tell that Brian thinks that he's this charmer that can talk to anyone. This is a tough crowd. He starts questioning this lady about her husband's whereabouts, and she really does not want to talk to him. She's being super standoffish. Ingrid is washing dishes and cooking. She's trying to queue up questions for her mom to answer, and her mom is like, and Brian is working overtime. Brian might as well be talking to a wall. And it just doesn't help that Brian has an off-putting personality from me. I feel like he is constantly trying to overcompensate for the fact that he's in a wheelchair. So he's always like, yeah, because you know, like I can make my way around, like I could do this, I could do that. Like he always has something to prove in a way that crosses the line from confidence. So he's telling Ingrid's mom, yeah, you know, I came a long way in this wheelchair to see her. So yeah, you know, I hope that she could come see me in the United States. And you could see the mom being like, my child is not going over there. And I get again that he was like swinging. He was just like trying to give her something to like have a conversation. But that's probably not the best idea to tell this lady that you're trying to take her daughter away. Far away at that. I have never ignored someone to their face in that way. Like she wasn't trying to make him think that she was like listening. She wasn't like politely doing it. She was very much like, why are you talking to me? But it's time to eat. Ingrid lays out the table. She goes with Brian and she's like, Mom, come join us. And the mom is like, no. And Brian starts questioning Ingrid, like, why isn't she joining us? Does she have something against me? Like, what's going on? And they kept asking the mom to join them. And she was like, no, I'm not hungry. I don't want to. And she was just seated in the kitchen by herself. Here's the thing. I'm not going to force you to break bread with someone that you don't care to do that with. But like, fake a nap. Say you have a headache. But this lady is like, I don't like you, and I don't care if you know that I don't like you. And I mostly felt bad for Ingrid because Ingrid is embarrassed that her mom can't be polite, that her mom can't mask what she's feeling. So she's embarrassed because this isn't a reflection of how she feels and how she would act, but this is also a testament to why she wanted to wait. And Brian rushed past this. And it's easier to defend someone and to stand by them when you are grounded in your feelings for them, but she's still figuring out how she feels about Brian. She's still figuring out what their future is going to look like. So while she's standing by him in this moment, I think that in the long run, it's going to be harder to defend him to her family when they're on shaky ground. So this is why you don't rush people to do things before they're ready. Because now, Brian, you're seated there with this awful feeling, and it didn't have to happen. He's not respecting Ingrid's timeline. He's on his own timeline where he wants them to like reach this level of like intimacy, this level of like closeness in the relationship, but he's trying to jam pack way too much in 2 weeks, and it's just not fair to everyone involved. He's not taking into account that she comes from a culture where she is really close to her family. She really values what they think. And this could have a long-term effect. So this could very much backfire. You guys, I don't like Brian. I really don't. But I don't think that he deserved this. I think that this was a bit much. I think that he was treated lower than dirt. There are certainly situations where he deserves that. But in this situation, I really don't feel like he was being an ass. I don't think that he was given a reason. I think that she already has preconceived notions about him on things that Ingrid has told her, on things that she, you know, theorized based off of the things that Ingrid has told her. But this was a hard watch. And it doesn't help that Brian just won't shut up. He keeps asking Ingrid questions about why her mom is doing that. And I just don't think that that's a fair position to put Ingrid as well, because she really did her best in trying to, you know, get her mom to join them, get her mom to ask questions. But her mom is their own person, you know, and like there's not very much that Ingrid could do. Also, Ingrid told you she didn't want to do this for this reason. But we finally get the truth from the mom when she's talking to the producer. She flat out says, I don't approve of this. Neither does her dad. And it has nothing to do with the wheelchair. It has everything to do with Brian living in the United States. And she's like, this is my only daughter. I don't want her to be taken away from me. So when Brian is like, oh yeah, we do this in Chicago and maybe she could come visit me, the mom did not like that. So after Brian and Ingrid finish eating, they go back into the house and Brian is like, why don't you join us? And he's still working overtime. He cannot read the room. And so he's like, oh, Ingrid, did you tell your mom about the trip that we're going to take? And she's like, oh, a little bit, not a lot. Brian, this is your cue to stop talking about it. She doesn't want her parents to know. Apparently, she fabricated this entire lie for her dad. And so when Brian shares with the mom where they're going, the mom is like, oh, well, if your father knew, he wouldn't let you go. And first of all, Ingrid is a grown-ass woman with kids. I think that, y'all need to back off. But this is her family unit. Ingrid is obviously gonna do what she wants to do, but to keep the peace with her very close-knit family, she's gonna make a few lies. Is that the healthiest? Would you do that? Would I do it? Probably not. But that is what she's doing and it works. And I just don't think that it's fair for Brian to come in and implode on their dynamic just because he wants some poom. You know what I mean? The whole situation is super uncomfortable, but I did feel bad for him when he hugged her mother goodbye. He had to ask for the hug. He's like, I'm sorry if I did anything to upset you. Which, but then he leaves and Ingrid is talking to her mom, like super casual about it. She's like, you should have sat with us. And the mom is like, I didn't want to. Ingrid is in a tough spot. This is gonna resurface. Brian is probably gonna hold it against her. It's gonna be a whole thing. I would love to know your thoughts on that segment because it was just sticky all around. Let's move on to the next couple, TigerLily and Adnan. So TigerLily is back home. She's been, I think, back for like a month or two, and we see her on her way to Cruz's salon. She's gonna meet Adnan again the next day. They're gonna go to Turkey. And so she has a lot of anxiety about seeing Adnan. Apparently it's been less than smooth sailing. Surprise, surprise. TigerLily is like, oh, he's been very controlling these days. And when she pulls up to Cruz's salon, she's bag lady over here because she's giving away all of her cute clothes to frickin' Shay because she can't wear them. So she shares with Cruz that Adnan has been super controlling. It has gone beyond just shaking male's hands. They're now having fights about her chiropractor. So she was having back pain and she was like, oh, I need to go to the chiropractor. He, I guess, did not know what it was, so he looks it up. Of course, he finds the social media chiropractors, the ones that do things for clicks, the ones that do things for shock factor. And of course, he finds one that looks very sensual, and he's like, is this what you want me to accept? A man groping my wife? TigerLily's like, that is not what I'm doing. Also, you're not having problems with my service providers? He apparently wants her to change her whole team to female. And she was pissed because she's like, what the F? Like, why do I have to explain to you why I have certain service providers? And TigerLily seems like the type that, like, she'll have someone doing something for her for years, i.e. freaking kind of like Cruz, who has done her hair for like a decade. She likes to hold on to her people. So she's not willing to give up her chiro for this crazy man. And so apparently she didn't answer his calls for the rest of the day, right? Well, that sent Adnan into a tizzy. He apparently had like some sort of panic attack. He was having a hard time breathing and that led him to the hospital. And she was like, oh my God, like it's that serious to him? And I love that Cruz was like, babe, you're being manipulated. And it's so obvious that that's what that is because afterwards, when he came out and she talked to him, they never talked about the issue again. And she's like, yeah, like I need us to talk about these things because, we're on a baby timeline. TigerLily has worms for brains because you marry this man, you realize, oh, he has certain expectations for me based off of his religion. I just don't understand why kids would be the next step for her when they have so much to figure out. I understand that with her age, she wants to not waste time. But babes, you started the season telling us how you felt like you were imprisoned by your ex-husband and by having kids for your ex-husband. Why are you walking into the same situation? This time with someone whose beliefs were there before you got there. I just feel like she's rushing through the fact that she knows nothing about his religion and hasn't taken initiative to look into it because he's obviously not reliable. If I were TigerLily, and let's say, Google isn't available to me, or like books aren't available to me, she's not using his family as a resource enough for me. Why isn't she having these conversations with her mother-in-law? Her mother-in-law looks like someone that doesn't wear head coverings, but is still glamorous and is obviously navigating society in Jordan. Why not? Why not seek out her guidance? Why is she continuing to go into this blindly? Are we watching 90 Day Love is Blind? What's going on here? So Tigerlily admits that she's afraid to give pushback to Adnan because she's afraid that she's going to lose him. But ma'am, he's your boy toy. You're in your 40s. You need to assert more power. This is your life, your kids' lives. You can't jump into these things in this way. It's so careless. Like, you don't play around with marriage. And so when they pan to Turkey and we see Adnan, we see him talk about his, hospital trip. And he's like, yeah, it's not a big deal. She should be able to switch her doctors. It's just so funny that Adnan is so used to living in a man's world. He's so used to Tigerlily submitting. So he's like, yeah, the minute she lands in Istanbul, all of her worries will disappear. They pan to Tigerlily, and Tigerlily is fuming on the plane. Apparently, before she got on the plane, she saw that Adnan posted a thirst trap after his shower, and she's like, hold up. This man is posting thirst traps, and I had to give away all of my bodycon dresses? Hell no. Honestly, you guys, these two are equally insufferable. She did no research, and she's jumping in. This man saw her in said bodycon dresses, picked her, and is now trying to change her. This plot is already tired. And so Tigerlily apparently saw the photo and was like, delete it. Because apparently that's what he does to her. And he was like, I don't have to delete it. In my religion, a man could do whatever they want. And if I were Tigerlily, with my level of petty, I would make sure to read it. Because right now, he's taking a lot of liberties for his benefit. She needs to read the text, break it down, and hold him accountable according to it. Because I have a feeling that he is lying. And that's the thing. This lady has done zero research, And I think that she thinks that, like, they're going to have a talk and he's going to get it because, these are double standards. He's not going to get it because he doesn't think that what he's doing is wrong. And he's grown up in a society where he's been enabled to think this. This is why you do your research before you go off meeting people and marrying them within 4 hours. Anyway, let's move on to Niles and Matilda. Matilda is heartbroken because she's like, this is the first time Niles has ever said that we weren't going to get married. What in the actual bleep? Given the scenes that we've seen, he never has said, no, I don't want to get married this trip, but he has definitely given pushback, and she's given pushback to the pushback. But with something like this, you have to be direct. You can't handle it passively. So like, yeah. But I totally understand what she feels in the dark because he never flat out said, no, I don't want to get married this trip. Stop planning, stop spending money. He never said that. When she would give pushback, he would just let her be. And so she's like, wedding happening. So to hear him finally say it when it's so close to the time, he proposed to her in person that morning, it's just a whirlwind of emotions and she just can't stop crying. And so they're in the van and they're talking about it and he's like, tell me, Matilda, did you ever hear me say flat out that we're going to get married? Ever agree that I would get married on this trip? And Matilda is like, is this a prank? Because we've always talked about us getting married in this trip. And it feels a little gaslighty. It is very gaslighty, right? He tries to pull the same narrative in his one-on-one interview. And this was the first time that I ever heard a producer be like, but actually, Niles, did you not say that you were having anxieties about having to break the news to Matilda because the plan was, after all, to have the wedding this trip? Was that not your whole storyline? That you were trying to find the courage to tell her that you were no longer going to do it? Was that not it? Can we agree? Can we agree that you are lying to her and to us now after telling us this whole time that you knew the wedding was going to happen and you wanted to stop it? Was that not what you said? And you could see him like tap out. He like lowers his head because he's like, damn it, I can't get out of this. And what he says that this is him masking that he doesn't like confrontation, so he will like avoid the truth. But I'm like, babe, autistic or not, that is a lie. You are lying and it's not right to do. And I just want to say that I need producers to call out everyone like that. But back with Matilda, Matilda's like, you had 5 days. We had 5 beautiful days that I talked to you about the wedding. And remember, he was asking her about the bride price. He was asking her about the knocking ceremony. He was going along with her plans. So she does feel blindsided. Get to their hotel and Matilda is still like stonewalling him. She's not being mean. She's not yelling at him. She's just in shock. Because remember, you guys, she doesn't come from a lot. And her family has been, taking the time to plan this. Money has gone into this. It's also just like, a rite of passage to get married. And this is a big deal. And she's been talking him up to people. So for him to land and disappoint her in this way, it's a lot. And so they're in the back of this hotel and he's like, I made a mistake in admitting the truth. And she's like, when are you going to marry me? And what are you going to tell my family? What's the timeline? And he's like, I do want to marry you, just not on this trip. And he doesn't really give her a certain timeline. And I wish that he was honest in this conversation. Yes, money is an issue. And I think that he wants to save up more. Absolutely. But at the root of this, he's delaying it because he doesn't believe that his parents approve. So I think that if he were to tell that to Matilda, they could come up with a plan of action of making it so that Matilda can have conversations with his parents, but he's leaving them both separate. It's not going to get any better. And so what he tells her is that he can do everything except the actual wedding. So the knocking ceremony, I think the bride price, anything that she expects except the wedding. And it's, Matilda's taking it. She's really sad and she's just leaning on his shoulder. So Niles is like, I'm sorry, this is an example of me masking, me avoiding, conflict and not correcting you because I don't want you to be angry. And the thing is, Matilda is very hurt, but she's not being angry. She's laying on him. She's still showing closeness. But like she's a human being and she had, this fairy tale wedding in her mind and he kind of just like took that from her. She didn't deserve the way that this went down. But what she tells him is, listen, are you going to marry me? And it was just a very vulnerable moment. And he's like, yeah, I promise you that like, I'm going to come back for you. She's like, listen, I'll be patient, but you have to explain this to my family. But yeah, my heart broke when she was like, you're going to come back for me, right? And like, she tells the producer, she's like, I am realizing now that with his autism, communication is going to be harder, but I love him, But I am concerned about that conversation with her family because if he's struggling to communicate with someone that he's comfortable with, I can only imagine how rough that conversation is going to be with people that probably won't give him grace and people that, he's not used to speaking to every day. There may be certain physical cues that they give that may make him close off. I'm just really worried about these two because I really like them, but I think they need to put all the cards on the table. And a big part of that is his family because they could be in a fairy tale together in Ghana, but the minute he goes back to Alabama and his family is like, you're not going back there, like, we don't trust this, we don't trust that. All the things that, are said to him, it's going to really affect the relationship. So yeah, he needs to come clean about that. But let's move on to the next couple. We're going to move on to Bozo&Vanja. Vanja missed her connecting flight and she is racing through these airports and she still can't get a text back. It's been like 24 hours. Bozo knows she's on her way to him and he has not reached out to her. So we see her, find a moment to sit at a cafe in the airport, calls him, and finally he answers. And it is the most bland conversation. And she's, excited that he answered. And she's like, yeah, I'm really hoping to get a ring at the end of this trip. And I'm like, babe, you could barely get a text back. You have a million careers. You deserve better, but okay, girl. You also deserve to see this through. I understand that it's easier to like romanticize something when you feel like you have unfinished business. So I get why she's, taking on this trip. But ooh, you guys, I don't like them together. Bojo is not doing it for me. He's not. And I'll tell you why. We see him with his mom and his aunt. They like are kikiing with each other because they cannot believe that he has someone potentially. But my thing is, y'all are enabling this man because he pulls up saying that he found a plant in a dumpster. I don't know if he wrapped it up nicely like that, or I don't know if someone just threw it like that in the dumpster. But I was like, please say you're joking. Please say psych. Because there's no way that I will tell my mom, yeah, I'm going to gift someone this thing from the dumpster. And they're going to be like, that's great. The fact that these ladies didn't even flinch, didn't be like, oh my God, do not embarrass us. Here's $10. Get her a small rose, something. I was like, oh. And they were like, yes, God, blessings. He met a woman. But I'm like, oh my God, don't you want better for her? So they're about to meet up at the airport. And Bojo was like, I think so highly of Vanya. I honestly don't feel like I deserve her. And you don't. You don't. But this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for you to step up, right? This is an opportunity for him to be his best version. But I find that in most cases, when guys feel like you're out of their league, they feel like they have to try less because they're like, it's a lose-lose. But it's like, she's setting you up to win. Show up. The moment comes, he sees her, she sees him, he like yells out her name, she shrieks, and they have this huge hug. And it's not romantic, they don't kiss, but there's this like childlike excitement. It was very endearing. They get to the car, he like apparently planned a date right away for them. They're like in this cooking class, which I thought was thoughtful because she's a baker. But after the cooking class, it's a group class. So they're talking to this other couple and they're like, oh, how long have you been together? And then the couple is like, how long have you been together? And she's like, ha 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 ha, funny story. And they get to talking about how they met online. But it's a record scratch moment when Bojo refers to Vanya as his friend, his dear friend. And Vanya's like, I am not your friend. I did not fly here as your friend. You're joking, right? And instead of just taking this in stride, Bojo is like, oh, actually, we're married. I left my ring in the car. And it's super uncomfortable. And you could see in his face that he knows that he put his foot in his mouth. And like, we don't see how the rest of that went. The next time that we see them, they're in the car. It's super awkward. On the way to the cooking class, I feel like Vanya couldn't shut up. And in this car ride, she's just like in her head. Like, does he even like me? Now that I think of it, he didn't kiss me at the airport. And I feel like overall between them, Bojo has like a more calm demeanor. I think that it's cultural. But with the things that he was saying, I'm like, oh, like maybe he's, a quiet guy, chill dude, but he's showing admiration for her. So of course he's into her, right? I'm not so sure, you guys. So what he says in his interview is that he referred to her as a friend because they haven't determined what their relationship status is. So I think that they're not on the same page on that because Vanya definitely thinks that they're together, definitely thinks that a ring is a possibility. And he's like, she's a girl that I've been FaceTiming with for 8 months and like, I'll see if there's a romantic connection. So a romantic connection has not been established for him yet. While for Vanya, it's been explosive. Yeah. They have a completely different understanding, and I think that that's going to come to a head next week. Because at the end of this week, they get to her Airbnb. It's really cute. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm tired. It's getting late. And she's like, oh, well, I have a nice couch if you want to stay here. And he's like, I'm tired, so I'm going to go. Bye. And he doesn't even hug her goodbye. And you could see she's taken aback by it. And again, I don't know if it's cultural. I don't know, but I just feel like I'm not getting romantic cues from him. And it is gonna come to a head next week because I think she's gonna be like, What's the deal? Like, are you not feeling me? I feel like he's hiding something else. I honestly think that he's still in love with his ex, but I also think that he's hiding something else. Or maybe he's being standoffish because of his shame that he hasn't come clean about his job situation. I don't know. But I just think that Vanya, if I were you, I would get back on the apps and enjoy your vacation. Let's move on to Faith and Loren real quick. We are in Faith's hometown. They are frolicking on the beach. She's trying to, like, have a good moment with Loren, but like in the back of her mind, she has, the whole cheating of it all. She's trying to find ways to get closer to her. He's like offering her massages. It's a lot. But in this talk, we learn a little bit about Faith's background, which is touching and makes me just want to like give her a hug as a person, but it's definitely giving this man more ammunition to manipulate. So we learn from Faith that she moved away from her family at 13 because all of her siblings had to work, but she was the only one that went away. So she was by herself in Manila and she had to provide. Her dad died of a heart attack, and she just says that it was just really hard to be poor and feel like you couldn't provide care for your family. So she felt like moving was the only way. My heart broke for her as she was crying talking about this, because at 13 to have to grow up and to have to like have that mind frame, it's just so unfair. Like, she didn't get to be a kid. It just makes you appreciate your life, but also makes me want better for other kids across the world. But you know what? Faith is a go-getter. She still valued her education and she was working while completing high school, which is not easy to do. But she's like, I hope that they're proud of me and the sacrifices that I made. And I know that they are, Faith. You are incredible. But this man hears this information and starts selling her a dream. And he's like, oh, you and I, we can be a team and we could help out your family and we could, have a life where we could live closer to them. Would you like that? And Faith is like, she's feeling warm and fuzzy because she's never had someone be her partner. She's always had to, fend for herself, do for herself, for her family. She's never had help. But at the same time, her mind is like, he's just saying this to say this, right? Because he has said other things and has lied. So, like, she's just really conflicted between her heart and mind. But their segment ends with him being like, so are you going to tell your family about what happened between us? And she's like, I don't know. And of course he's worried because he's like, oh, I want them to like me. I need her to let me stay in the Philippines. I don't want Faith to tell her family, and it has nothing to do with him. It's more for her. I think that when you tell things to your loved ones, they can hold a grudge. So while you may be over something and while you may forgive something, they won't. So I just feel like she should hold off on that information until she's completely done with him. Because if she's not done with him and she tells them that, it's just going to make it really uncomfortable for her. She already has a lot on her plate, so tell them after. Tell them after you got him out of your system, and then you guys can kiki about the nightmare that is Loren. That's it for them this episode. Let's move on to the last couple, Chidi&Rayne. Oh, I'm sorry, Chidi&Rayne, Chicken Lady. I thought we had seen the last of them. I was shooketh. We're gonna see them again and again, it seems. So Renee's in her hotel room. She's lamenting about the fact that Chidi has yet to pull up to her door and ask for forgiveness and ask her to be together again. She tells us that she has like a rough exterior, but it's because she's been through a lot in relationships. And like, haven't we all? I think with Renee, what's been harder is that I don't think she has friends, and so she doesn't have people to process this with. So I do get why that has hardened her. But she says that her baby daddy, when she was pregnant at 3 months, just hugged her and left. That was all. That was the end of that interaction. So that definitely would send me in a tizzy. That would certainly have me in my head. But you still treat people with respect. I definitely understand how your traumas can like manifest and like come up in times that you really don't need it to. However, However, I think that she's holding Chidi to a standard of a seeing man, and that's a her thing because Chidi has always been transparent about his capabilities, and I think she thinks that he could do more than he can, and I think that because she's such a lone wolf, she expects him to be a lone wolf, and he comes from a place where he is supported by a community, one, because he's lucky enough to have so many people that care about him, and two, because he literally cannot fend for himself. It is literally unsafe to do. So I just think that some of her expectations for him are unreasonable. But I totally get wanting to feel loved, wanting to feel affection. All of those things are important. But if you find yourself in a position where you have to beg your partner to do those things, to have your needs met, then you have to realize that like that's not the relationship for you. I understand it's hard to do after 5 years. I get that. But they are not in harmony. And that is what Chidi shares. When we pan to Chidi, Chidi is also not in a good place. He feels tormented by the fact that he cares for her and that she was so disrespectful to him and to his family. He's like, what success can we have as a couple if there's no harmony between you and my family? He does acknowledge though that his actions might have like instigated this eruption in her, but still, like, it's not okay, and it's true. And so we see a moment with Victoria, his sister, and his brother-in-law. They're checking in on him, and he's like telling them their feelings, and it sounds like he would want Renee back, and you could see Victoria being like, do not bring this crazy lady back into my house. And her husband like poses it as a question, but he's like, so why would you want that? Why would you want to get back together in a situation that was so explosive? Victoria's like, I know that you love her, and I know that when you are in love, it's easier to have amnesia. It's easier to forget the hard moments, but they're going to keep resurfacing. And you're going to reach a point where you're going to have to choose between your family and her. And it's not because Victoria's going to make him choose. Renee from the jump wanted to isolate Chidi. And I think that long term, her dream would be for them to be in America far away from his family because she thinks that his family is this influence in his life. And even in her pain, Victoria's like, I'm not trying to get in your way. I want you to be happy. I just like want you to think things through. And I felt that so deeply. If you have siblings, like you really want to protect them against everything. But I think that with Victoria, there's that added layer of like, you are your sibling's caregiver. You know that he needs a lot. And this lady is not necessarily wanting to do things for his benefit. She wants to do things the way that she wants it. And I know that that's so hard to like hold your tongue on, But she's like, listen, like I support you no matter what. And everyone in Chidi's life feels this way. We see him have a moment with his best friend, who by the way is a cutie. But his best friend is like, sir, she sounds awful. Like, obviously, Chidi has talked to him about Rayne all along, and he's just like, I don't see why there is a love connection still. Specifically because Chidi's faith is so strong, and apparently Rayne has talked about demons numerous times. So he's like, I don't understand why you're holding on to this lady. And so after hearing about Rayne's disrespect, he's like, do you think that you can put up with that kind of temper for the rest of your life? And the answer is no. It's taking him a bit to like say no because he's like, I really care for her, but it is overwhelming when she gets like that. And we saw a few instances where he was like almost having a panic attack because he was just overstimulated with her yelling over him, with her hovering over him, and he can't see what's happening. I just think that it is a terrifying, unsafe position to be in because she just doesn't seem like she is in control. She just doesn't seem like someone that can regulate her emotions enough to like chill out, and like she's doing all this physical stuff around someone that can't mind his step. Yeah, I would not leave her next to him. And unfortunately, this lady is still in La La Land. So Chidi and his best friend end in a conversation that basically is like, you know what to do, right? Meaning you need to go break up with her. The next scene we see is Renee in this lingerie, and she's like, because Chidi texted her and was like, yeah, I want to see you. I think that she thinks that he's going to pull up to the hotel, and she's like, yeah, I got this new lingerie so that he can feel how soft it is. She thinks that they're going to get back together. She's like, I knew that he wouldn't let me go. She has another thing coming, and from next week, it doesn't look good. It looks like he's breaking up with her at the beach, and it is not going well. She's pointing the finger. It's hilarious because she was in this lingerie like, yeah, I knew that he wouldn't let his family get in between us. He's coming to his senses. I knew that he wouldn't let me go. Meanwhile, Chidi's like, how do I send this lady back as quickly as possible? Things are getting so juicy. I love it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I feel like I've been yapping forever. I need to go to work. Let me know your thoughts on this. I can't wait to read them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.